Princess Kate ignores questions after she and King Charles are the members of the royal family accused of making racist comments. Plus, Endgame accuses the palace of shutting down Prince William's affair rumors as Dominic West reveals why his son did not return as Prince William on the crown. Plus, Gareth Russell, the author of The Palace, stops by to talk about the scandals that took place in Hampton Court.
One day you're talking about what it's like to be a servant in Tudor times, and then William Shakespeare rehearsing there and making chocolate and kings and mistresses and sex scandals. It's such a fabulous arc of history and stories.
We've got that plus so much more in today's Royally Us. Hey everyone, and welcome to Royally Us. I'm Christina, that's Christine, and the Endgame train keeps on rolling.
Just to say, we're still talking about Endgame, and we're still talking about the crown.
Yes, I mean, I feel like this is going to take us through to the end of the year, but it really is. But let's kick off with the big news of the week, because of course, Piers Morgan claimed that King Charles and Kate are the members of the royal family accused of making racist comments about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's firstborn son, Archie, in Dutch copies of the new book, Endgame. So in the officially published version of the book, author Omid Scobie wrote, even after Meghan and Charles by letter discussed about probable unconscious bias within the family after it was revealed that took redacted part in such conversation about Archie, redacted, has avoided discussing the subject with redacted. So those were taking out of, context there. So according to several reports, the Dutch version of Endgame was published with names printed. Morgan told uncensored viewers on Wednesday that he felt the British people who actually pay for the British royal family are entitled to know the names published in the Dutch version and are allegedly, like I said, Charles and Kate. Interesting. I spoke to Gareth, who of course has a book out, and he said that maybe the names were featured in early copies of the book, later taken out, and then the Dutch translator had an early copy of the book, and they were named.
Yeah, this is such a messy situation because the translator is saying, I just translated what was in front of me. The Dutch publisher is saying, no one wants to take blame for this. Piers Morgan did confirm what was flying around the internet. So before he went on his show, lots of people were able to Google it, pop on Twitter and see who these alleged names were. But this is such an interesting story in that no one is taking the blame. No one is accepting fault on this one. And it has just created a whole second firestorm coming out of this book with these names being released.
It really does. And as we know, Omid is kind of, in the Sussex camp. Like, obviously they're friends, but this is not a good look for Harry and Meghan at all. I mean, the terrible press for the two of them just keeps on coming. And I feel like we are so far beyond these stories that we keep rehashing them over and over again. And this it doesn't look good for their image and maybe any reconciliation going forward, because, as we had those stories of Charles Harry and Meghan sending Charles a birthday wish, it just seems like whenever we take a step forward, we take 10 steps back.
Yeah. And it's amazing how we are coming to the end of the year. Spare came out almost a year ago, and we're still talking about the exact same stories, the exact same accusations these names to show up in the Dutch translation, but nowhere else. It's really interesting because it's only bad news for Harry and Meghan. It's turned into a bit of a disaster for the author, Scobie, and no one is accepting blame. So everyone's pointing fingers.
It's so true. And I have to note that in an interview with ITV, Omid did deny ever revealing the names to begin with. He said, I never submitted a book that had those names in it, and that he is frustrated like everybody else about this ongoing controversy. I guess that's true, but it just seems like, where did this translator get these names from? I don't know. They're two very big names. But a source does tell Us Weekly that Kate was 100% not one of the people who discussed it. He said she is saddened that her name got pulled into this because she had nothing to do with it. So as we know, the palace will not respond to any of these accusations, but I'm sure that they're not happy. And they actually, the Prince of Wales and the Princess of Wales both ignored questions about the book and its aftermath during a red carpet appearance at the annual Royal Variety performance in London. A reporter could be heard yelling, "Your Royal Highness, have you got a comment about Omid Scobie's book?" When William ignored that question, the person tried again, asking, "Did you watch the Piers Morgan show last night? Your Royal Highnesses." Both William and Kate ignored the second inquiry as well as they stepped on the carpet. They both looked, fit for royals on this red carpet. They looked absolutely amazing. But yeah, no, they are not going to respond to this one at all. I think that they're, ever since Prince William did respond saying that we are not a racist family, we don't make racist comments, they really have not said much at all.
Yeah, and that was really an out of character comment. I mean, historically, there's not a lot of times that the royals will respond to those questions from the press because it just sort of opens you up to more of them and takes the attention away from whatever you're doing that day, whatever the special royal event is. So it's no surprise that they didn't respond, but this is definitely going to fall into our long list of things we will never know the truth about.
100%. We'll never know the truth. And it seems like it's business as usual. The king and the queen attended church, and he also made an impassioned speech to world leaders, saying now was the time for action, not more words. Speaking at the opening of the 28th United Nations Climate Change Conference in Dubai, he said, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. So yeah, like I said, business as usual. As we know, climate talk and climate change is one of King Charles's passions. So this is fitting that he would make this speech about that.
Yeah, it's really powerful that he's that it is a huge passion of his. It's a huge campaign, and he's really getting involved in as many big, high profile climate events as he can. And we know that, in some parts of the world, this is still up for discussion, but for the king and for the United Kingdom, it's a very clear message that climate change is happening, and it's one of the biggest issues of our time. And his presence at these events is so important. It just really drives home how important the issue is.
Definitely. All right. Well, moving on over to the Princess of Wales. She officially opened the new Children's Day Surgery Unit at the Evelina London Children's Hospital, which cares for children with rare and complex conditions. She has served as its patron since 2018, and she was all smiles as she arrived for the solo stop and took a tour designed to replicate a child's journey on their day of surgery. This is housed within the Children's Day Treatment Center and treats a variety of conditions such as tonsillitis, removal of adenoids, hand injuries, minor plastic surgery, and others. So definitely some good work that Kate is doing, like always.
Yeah, it was really interesting. This was a hugely important event. She met with lots of children who are involved, either patients there or were sort of involved with making the designs that sort of were painted on the walls, which is really cool. But on a fashion note, she did wear a suit from Sarah Burton for Alexander McQueen, and it was really interesting to see her bringing out the McQueen pieces, even though Sarah Burton has since left the brand. So hopefully that means that we'll see some more McQueen pieces coming out of her closet. She hasn't totally shoved them into storage. It gives me hope.
Gives us hope. All right, well, let's spill some royalty. Circle back to Endgame because there's a lot to talk about. So the palace attempted to shut down, allegedly, rumors that Prince William had an affair, according to the book. So Omiscoby wrote that Kensington Palace pulled out all the stops to bury a 2019 story that alleged William was cheating on his wife with former friend Rose Hambury. So they claimed that press secretary Christian Jones offered British tabloid The Sun other royal-related stories in exchange for standing down on the rumors. So what do we make of all this? Obviously, they were longtime friends. They and now they really don't see each other, at least in public, that much anymore. So it seems like that maybe there was some falling out. But what do you make of this story?
Well, I think Rose and her husband, who's the 7th Marquess of Cholmondeley, are still part of the royal fold. We've seen them at Christmas at Sandringham. We've seen them at state receptions. Rose's husband served in a very high profile position for Queen Elizabeth II. So in recent years, we've obviously seen that change as he no longer holds that position for King Charles III. But they're still friends. They still are seen out and about. They're big high profile events. Kate recently was seen at a music festival at Rose and David's house. So I think this is a friendship, like two couples who get on well, that someone turned into a really unkind rumor. And I think the palace press probably does have to play a bit of a game of, listen, the story's nonsense. Right. You got to stop running it. And what can we do to, entice you to do that? Because ultimately, the palace and the press have this balance. They do have to have sort of a give and take relationship. But I hate this rumor. There's absolutely nothing to it. And it's been so hurtful to people who are not in the public eye and don't deserve the attention. And yet again, Endgame is pulling up old stories, rehashing things that we've already gone through. and none of it's very nice. I think I said that maybe last week. I know I've said it before, that everything about this, it just doesn't feel nice.
No, it doesn't feel like nice. And like you said, these are stories that we've addressed and talked about at this point years ago. So it's like, why do we have to keep rehashing it over and over again? And like you said, bringing people into a mix on a public stage that probably don't want to be there. So moving on over to The Crown, because Dominic West says he stopped his son Senan West from continuing as Prince William in The Crown to avoid depicting the aftermath of Princess Diana's death. So his teen son Senan made his television debut as a young Prince William in season 5 of The Crown. And while Dominic continued to play King Charles in the 6th and final season of the drama, he told the Radio Times that he hesitated for Senan to appear in season 6 because he did not want to relay the news of the death of Princess Diana on screen. He said, I didn't really fancy doing the scene at Balmoral telling a boy his mother had died. They invited Senan back because he did a good job and he was great, but I did slightly balk at that. It was unfair of me because he did want to do it, but I wouldn't have fancied that, to be honest. I totally I understand, as you know, as parents, that is not something that even you want to pretend to play. But on the flip side, I'm sure his son was like, I just want to be in The Crown.
Famous. I can't imagine, actors are so skilled at sort of, removing themselves from reality. But I think in that situation, especially a parent to a child, it's impossible. It would be so, so difficult. So I think a lot of parents are thinking that, we absolutely can't blame him. Obviously, the second half of season 6 drops very soon. We got a very exciting trailer. And I am looking forward to this next half of the last season.
Me too. I hope it kind of redeems itself from the last one. Like you said, we got the trailer. It kind of, some flashbacks into, Queen Elizabeth's early life. We see Kate and William meet at school. And of course, that infamous fashion show with the mesh outfit. We're going to get that. So it's going to see the early stages of that relationship. So I'm excited for this upcoming season. I have high hopes.
Yes, I'm hoping that it's good because everyone loves this time period. It was really a good time for the royal family in the sense that Prince William was growing in popularity. Kate had entered the scene, and that was really growing their popularity. So hopefully we can end on a good note.
Definitely. All right. Well, circling back to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, because they have reportedly been left off the guest list for the nuptials of Hugh Grosvenor, the Duke of Westminster, and Olivia Henson, despite them being close to both Harry and with Prince William. So the wedding is set for June 7th at Chester Cathedral in Northwest England. But a spokesperson for Grosvenor, who is one of Britain's richest men, tells Us Weekly we are not in a position to comment on the guest list. But they have a long history together as well. He is a godparent to William and Kate's son, Prince George. And so we hear that he made the decision not to invite the Duke and Duchess of Sussex because he reportedly wants to avoid a family clash amid the rift between the royal brothers. I'm sure, you just don't want some drama at your wedding.
Yeah, I think this would just create a huge story and a bit of a media circus out of the wedding. And who knows, maybe they talked about it. Maybe Harry and Meghan said it's a bit far for just a weekend. There's so many things that could have gone into this. It does look like Harry and Meghan won't be there. It is a very, very highly anticipated wedding, but I can't blame them for sort of wanting to keep the attention on them and not on the huge royal family drama that would unfold.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's break down the royal rules. And joining us today is Gareth Russell, who is, of course, our friend and author, whose brand new book, The Palace from the Tudors to the Windsors, 500 Years of History at Hampton Court, is out today. And he is joining us. Tell me about this book. It is all about Hampton Court, but it's so cool how you do this book because it's all about stories from the different rooms.
Right. So listen, I'll be completely honest. Architectural history, not my job. So I don't really know the difference between sort of crenellations and turrets. And there have been good architectural histories of Hampton Court, which is this sprawling, gorgeous palace about 15 miles outside London, banks of the river. It's just a storybook palace. It's wonderful. But what I wanted to do was tell the story of people who lived there. So the way I do it, as you say, is each chapter is a different room from the perspective of a different person who lived there in a different decade. So you start in the medieval kitchens in 1495 and you end with Kate, Princess Catherine, visiting the gardens in 2016. And I just had an absolute I mean, I blast Christina researching this, because one day you're talking about what it's like to be a servant in Tudor times, and then William Shakespeare rehearsing there and making chocolate and kings and mistresses and sex scandals. It's such a fabulous arc of history and story. So I loved writing it.
Yeah. When you were doing your research, what story stood out to you the most?
Sometimes it was really funny things that would not be amiss in Real Housewives. So in chapter 16, it's set in the 1660s, and King Charles II had many a lady friend.
Yes.
And one of the stories I loved was that he had this very grand aristocratic mistress, Barbara Palmer, who was feuding with a Cockney actress he was having an affair with called Nell Gwynn. And Nell said that she didn't get involved in feuds, and that was for other people. But she would send candied laxatives to other mistresses to trip them up the night they were meant to spend the night with the king. So those kind of really human, silly stories I love. Everyone loves a good historical feud.
Totally. And this was the primary residence for the royals for quite some time.
This was Buckingham Palace before BP.
Yeah.
And from about 1529 to 1760, so Henry VIII to George III, it is the one-off, if not the main residence. And it's also a little bit like, I would say, Buckingham Palace and Windsor Castle today. Windsor, they spend a lot of time at too, but Buckingham Palace is the one that's famous abroad. That was Hampton Court. Everyone wanted to see it. It was the one they associated with the royals. And so for 200 years, it's just this beating heart of politics. It's still technically owned by the monarchy, but it's run by an educational preservation charity. And in 1953, Elizabeth II's coronation ball was held there, and a military division hosted it. So the Queen, Prince Philip, and Princess Margaret went. And one of the things, it was very glittering, you know, they danced until 4 a.m. and there were fireworks. And that's the prologue, because you're going from, she left Buckingham Palace to go to Hampton Court, which is the journey in reverse of the monarchy with those palaces. But one of the things I found out as I was doing the research, which I loved because it was so subtly stealthy, was that the Queen Mother decided, I'm not going to the Hampton Court ball. She went to a Royal Air Force ball in London, and she said, my staff will come with me. And one of her staff was Group Captain Peter Townsend, whose romance with Princess Margaret was percolating. And the Queen Mother had just found out about it. So apparently the reason she shifted from Hampton Court to the RAF ball was so that Peter and Margaret wouldn't be in this incredibly romantic setting, because she was hoping it would, the joke was Peter out.
I love that. Such an interesting read. So much history at Hampton Court. And I think a lot of people, a lot of royal enthusiasts, a lot of history buffs are definitely going to love this book.
It's very well timed for Christmas, for Christmas gifts. I think it would be brilliant.
Definitely. All right. Well, let's wrap it up with our pint-sized palace. And the Princess of Wales took Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis to the set of the UK's version of Dancing with the Stars. The royal children even got to sit in the judges' seats and hold up paddles with scores after a performance. And it seems like this is probably like, if you love dancing and things like that, this is a dream come true for them.
This sounded like so much fun. We know that Kate and her mum are huge fans of the show, which is called Strictly Come Dancing. It is very, very popular. It is just like Dancing with the Stars. I love that she brought the kids with her. She also brought one of Zara Tindall's daughters with her. So it was a big family affair. And it's really cool that they get to do these things. Obviously, this is part of the privilege of being a member of the royal family, but I think it's really special that they can have these sort of special days out.
Oh yeah, I mean, what could be more fun than flipping a paddle on Strictly Come Dancing? Sign me up for that. All right, well, that is it for this week's episode of Royally Us. Christine, thank you so much as always.
This was fun.
It was. All right, guys, keep commenting, keep subscribing, and we'll see you next week. For more news content and exclusive interviews, make sure to hit the sub, like, and bell button down below and visit usmagazine.com.